Hey everybody, how's it going? Chris Lentz here, and I know it's been a really long time since I made a video, but I wanted to create a video that was all about my first 2 years as a private pilot. Spoiler, I did go back and retake the last portion of my flight test that I didn't pass, which, as a refresher, you can see that video here on this card. It talks about a little bit about what happened. But needless to say, I landed short on a short field approach, short field landing, and I landed actually before the spot that I had selected. So that's kind of what happened. And there's not really anything specifically about landing before that in the regs, but in the ACS it does say on or after that point. So I did end up passing when I went back and made sure that I landed beyond my point the next times through. But I wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like my first 2 years as a private pilot. Obviously, the entire world has changed, right? With COVID, a lot of things kind of got shifted around and put on hold, and I thought by now I would actually be a commercially rated pilot and maybe even working on my CFI. But as it stands right now, I haven't even finished my instrument rating. And so I also want to talk about that, what's coming up next, and some videos that you're probably going to see in the very near future about where I'm taking my aviation. So first, let's talk about my first 2 years. Obviously, the first thing I did once I got my license was to take my family on a flight, and we did that. We went from where we were living at the time, which was in the Bay Area, and we flew to the Napa-Sonoma area, and we flew to a little tiny airport just down the street from one of our favorite vineyards. And so yeah, we did that and flew into that little airport. I was obviously nervous because I had my wife and my daughter in the airplane, and we also had one of our really good friends in the airplane with us as well. So basically, I had three other souls that I was, responsible for during that flight, right? And for my very first, really flight for, family and friends, after having my license and into a new airport, I was a little bit nervous. And so as we approached the airport, I was pretty confident. I knew right where it was. I knew what it looked like. I had looked at it already on Google Maps, so I knew what the surrounding area looked like. I had looked at pictures of the area, and we had driven by that airport many, many times before I had actually finished my license. So I was pretty familiar with the area, but it was going to be my first time flying in. So we're approaching. Everything's looking pretty good. I'm a little bit high, and this strip just happens to be a pretty short landing strip, and not a lot of great options in terms of doing a lot of other things other than just going around. So as soon as I realized I didn't really like the way the sight picture looked, I just throttled up and went around. It's always better to give yourself that second chance than to not get the second chance. So that's what I did. Went around, second time, was right where we needed to be, landed safely, bought some wine, loaded it up, and flew back home later that evening. So it was a great first flight, and there have obviously been many, many flights after that. Not probably as many as I would have liked. I definitely did not, in the 2 years since I've had the license, I definitely didn't fly as much as I thought I was going to. I was thinking that maybe I would do, between 50 and 100 hours per year. And that just didn't happen. COVID came along and a lot of other stuff happened. I was super busy with work and just, life happened. So I didn't quite get to fly quite as much as I thought I was going to. But I did have some really fun trips. I got to fly with one of my really great friends in the Bay Area, and we went around and let him tool around with the controls a little bit, while I kind of monitored. Same thing with my wife. I let her, at the controls a couple of times just to let her get a feel for the airplane, get more comfortable in there. And it was just an all-around good time. I flew into some airports that I always wanted to fly into, like Monterey and Half Moon Bay. So it was really, really cool to fly into just some airports that I never got the chance to fly into. So that's pretty much all I really have for that. I did some training. I got checked out in some other airplanes. I got checked out in G1000 Cessna. So I have actually quite a bit of G1000 time now, which is really nice. But let's talk about where things are going for the future. For me, anyway, at least the more recent, the near future, I should say, because I don't really know my long-term plan yet. The idea of doing aviation as a career is enticing, but at the same time, my current career is very rewarding, both financially and from just a challenge standpoint. I work in tech, and obviously it's really high in demand right now, especially in my specific field. But I love aviation a lot, and I could definitely see myself doing it every single day as well. So I'm really torn between those two things. So we'll see what happens over the next year or two and see where that goes. But for the near future, here's my plan. I am going to finish my instrument rating. I do have some training along the instrument rating. I just haven't finished it out. I need a few more cross-country hours, I think. Just a few, though. I mean, literally a few, maybe 3 or 4. And I definitely need just a lot of the time doing the approaches, doing holds, doing all of the patterns. I've done a ton of approaches before on the instruments. I was lucky enough to have a really great instructor in the very beginning of my training who sat me at the sim a lot, and we did a lot of approaches that way, and I also did a lot of simulated approaches. Anytime we were coming back in from a VFR lesson, he would, try to get us set up for a practice approach into where I was flying before, which was Hayward. And that was really great. It was really nice to get that experience and kind of tweak that. And it also made me tweak all of my private pilot skills too, just to make everything much more accurate. And even if I wasn't flying IFR, obviously, sometimes I still like to just fly that glide slope, because why not? Why not fly the approach, mentally, still staying visual, but, have the gauges showing you that approach and follow it in. Why not do that, right? Why not practice that? Why not work to get better at being more accurate and precise with the flying, right? So that's good. So instrument rating, right? That's the first thing. The next thing is I'm going to do the multi, right? I've already been studying a lot for the Cessna 310 that's out at Auburn, which is one of the airports that's nearby me now. So probably going to hopefully fly with them out there. There's a 310 that they have. And I've read through the POH a couple of times now and really familiarized myself with all those checklists and procedures and emergency procedures, and just generally tried to practice as much as I could, even on my simulator. So I got the Coronado Cessna 340, a little bit more powerful of an airplane, but very, very similar characteristics to the 310 from what I've seen and read. So I've been practicing a lot with that, going through all those emergency procedures, doing as much as I can, like on my own sim, to hopefully reduce that time that I'm going to need in the actual airplane. Because as many of you probably know, renting multi-engine aircraft is not cheap. And here in California, it's really not cheap. So that's number 2. And then number 3 is my commercial. And that's going to be a commercial single, commercial multi, obviously. So when I do the multi, obviously I'm going to do the instrument add-on for the multi as well. So going to try to really knock down 3 big things really soon. My goal is before my next birthday, which is in May, I want to have all 3 of those done. So that's my plan. I hope I can get there. I'm going to try really, really hard to do so, and I hope that you'll help me stay accountable. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this plan, what you think about the first 2 years. Maybe even tell me about your experience, your first year, your first 2 years after having your private pilot's license, and what's your plan for moving forward in aviation? Well, hope to see you then. Thanks so much, and safe flying.